the thing is that, some of you out there might be saying, well, why, Tony, why are you bringing this up? I'm bringing it up the same reason why I brought it up during COVID. In these types of situations, often it is marginalized communities, Black and brown people, that they disproportionately affect the most. Has there been enough time to see if that's the case? Without having done any research, I know that's probably going to be the case. That's how. But has there been enough time? Do we know that if these laws are disproportionately, impacting and affecting marginalized communities and Black and brown folks?
Yeah, I think it's too new for us to see the way that this law is actually operating. We've talked in our last broadcast about the pace of change of public safety. Our policy director, Taryn Darling, had mentioned on our last broadcast that we are seeing public safety laws being introduced at council at a rate of like once a month or more frequently than that. And between the time that
every couple of weeks.
She said every couple of weeks. I'm sorry. What do I mean? What am I saying? Once a month?
Every couple of weeks. That's Anyway.
And the pace of it, the way that the pace of it is, typically a public safety law goes in front of the Public Safety Committee for first reading. That is an opportunity for the council members to understand what the proposal is, to be able to ask questions about it, to be able to discuss it. Then it goes 2 weeks later in front of Public Safety Committee again for a second reading. Usually by that time, folks have had a chance to work with their staff, potentially work with their constituents, and offer up some amendments to that law, and they discuss those. And at that point, it is either passed by the committee, which means recommended for a full vote by council, or it isn't. Assuming it goes past the Public Safety Committee, they have a majority vote of the committee to move it to full council. A week later, we see it on the full council agenda. So that means that there is the potential for a public safety law to change in the course of 3 weeks. So that is what Taryn was referring to. And sometimes this is the pace at which things happen. And so, you asked me an earlier question about community members, like, what do you do if you have concerns or thoughts about a law like this? Well, it is so difficult, right? Because most of us are operating on survival mode. We are not, sitting there waiting the second that something hits the council's agenda, making time off of work if we can, finding childcare for our kids or family members that we're caretaking, getting down to council at 9:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, making our voice heard. Like, most of us don't have the luxury and privilege of being able to operate in that way. And so this type of implementation of laws and this really fast pace that it moves at is really detrimental to community members. And so, this is why we encourage folks to talk to the CPC, because, our job is to stay tuned in, is to try to catch these things, to intervene as quickly as possible, to do the policy analysis. So helping people understand what this means, right? A lot of these things are complex laws. And so our ability to be able to provide that review and analysis, have conversations with communities about what this means, hear feedback back from them, and then introduce that into the legislative process. But even with our work, this pace is detrimental to communities being able to have their voice heard, and for us to be able to have the time to engage with community members, to be able to do all of that, and then get that to council at a rate that impacts these laws. And so this is, if there was a wand and I could change one thing about that, it is that the process would require more time and require a community input process. I think another thing that is notable is when bills are introduced in council, central staff prepares a memo that helps to outline the impacts of those bills. One part of that memo is a racial impact analysis, racial equity impact analysis. And that basically means that it's an analysis of the impact of this legislation on Black and brown communities, on LGBTQ plus communities, on other vulnerable communities, so that there's an understanding of what, if passed, this law would do. That was not done in this case. And so that was another one of CPC's concerns, is that when we looked at the memo that had been produced on this, it was blank when it came to the racial equity analysis. And so this is another thing that if I could wave that wand, I would require that something cannot be introduced to council without an analysis done about how this impacts Black and brown communities.
we're talking about chronic nuisance laws. Now, I'm going to interrupt this conversation for a second just so that I can say this. This is why we are doing Community Election Connection. This is why we are sharing information with you about things that are taking place in your community so that you can be aware of what you want from these officials that you are electing. What is their policy? Where do they stand? How will they notify you? Will they notify you when these changes become laws that affect and impact you, your neighborhood, your community, your apparently residents? Okay, I'm done. But this is why we have the Community Election Connection. And I definitely want to thank, the Community Police Commission for seeing the significance and importance of understanding that this concept of police accountability extends beyond, and not that it shouldn't also include police brutality and police, roughing up folks, but there are so much more that you need to be aware of so that you can talk to your elected official and get some kind of response. Okay, now back to our regularly scheduled discussion about the chronic nuisance laws and what this looks like, what this means. I mean, I could ask the question, EC, but I'm just going to let you, with your comments here, just in the last 10 minutes we have, just kind of make this make sense, because it's not making sense to me how these changes have happened and we don't know about it, and we don't know why they happened and what spurred them and what went from being something to protect communities from after hours nightclubs. Turn potentially into, you know what? I'm not really a fan of yours. I don't like it when your cousins come over. I'm going to file a complaint. And it becomes a complaint at that point. And with 3 of these, it's just too much. $37,500. And in order to get this rectified, you have to do it at $500 a day and $750 a day.
It's now $750
a day. And the ultimate body or person or individual who will be making these decisions, whether it's about healthcare, is who?
The chief of police.
Okay.
The chief of police. And I wonder too, we're sitting here having this conversation, as is our job and as is our honor to do. And I just wonder what our system would look like if it was Seattle Police Department leading this type of conversation, right? If there was an opportunity for folks to be able to talk to the department directly about this, if the mayor's office was leading this conversation, right? This was originally proposed by the mayor's office and then introduced to council. What about the mayor's office having conversations with communities about chronic nuisance and collecting input that then informs what goes forward? What about council members? If I'm a community member, I would expect, I am a community member, and I do expect my council member to be hosting forums like this, to be hosting conversations like this, to be saying, hey, everybody, gather around, right? In my case, it happens to be District 2. District 2, gather around. Hey, we're thinking about something that we think we might change. It's about chronic nuisance. Here's how it works. I want to know what you think because I need to know how to vote, right? And so I'd love how you framed the community election connection that is happening. We personally in CPC, we don't engage in campaign activities, but we do encourage folks to be able to participate, right? Yeah. There's a civic participation, and we want to make that accessible to community members. And that means that all of us in government have a responsibility to talk to the people about things that impact them.
Well, once again, unfortunately, we're out of time.
Oh, is that right?
This happened to us last time. Again, there's so much to unravel here, and the next conversation on the 30th is going to be about surveillance, and I don't know how we're going to get to that. I just want to give everybody, I have to limit you to like 30 seconds, but I'd like to get everyone's feedback. And on October 21st, we're going to take, I think, 2 hours.
That's right.
For the town hall meeting, where we'll have a little more time but then we'll also be hearing feedback from the community as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to give each of you 30 seconds. Ken, I'm going to start with you. Chronic nuisance, if there's anything that you'd like to share with those who are listening right now about chronic nuisance in 30 seconds, I want to give you
30 seconds. Yes. Do not despair. We shared a lot. There's a lot of language, a lot of lingo. There's some folks who are like, what does, I don't understand half the stuff you shared. Please reach out to CPC. This is why I was appointed to this role. Reach out to me, reach out to this team. We'd love to have a sit down talk and further really break down what this looks like.
And Danny, Senior Policy Advisor.
Just,
Yes.
I want to quickly say we didn't touch on due process concerns, but I did want to say that although the property owner, you know, if this happens to you, you don't have a say on whether the police chief determines your property a permanent nuisance. But the collaboration we did with Councilmember Hollingsworth's office, with an amendment passed that gives some kind of due process. It requires the city attorney to consider any documentation provided by the property owner that contests the designation before pursuing court action. So in that way, even if the police chief says this is a nuisance, you would have the opportunity to contest it in that way before the city attorney pursues it. And I just wanted to let people know that.
I appreciate that. Thank you for pointing that out.
And EC, again, you know, final words. And I'm sorry I have to limit you. This time goes by so fast when we're talking about these things. And as you know, we had to really narrow it down just to get to the point where we were just, anyway.
We have unlimited time because this is our job. If you want to engage with us in the Community Police Commission, please reach out to us. You can reach us collectively at ocpc@seattle.gov. But please feel free to reach out to any of us, first name, last name @seattle.gov. We're happy to have a conversation with you anytime, and that is in a place of your comfort. If you want to meet at your local coffee shop or wherever makes sense, is comfortable for you, we are happy to engage with you about this topic, about any topic that deals with public safety and police accountability. And please come to our town hall on October 21st, 6 to 8 here at the Columbia City Theater.
October 21st. You've been listening to Rainier Avenue Radio, and this has been part 2 of our 4-part series on police accountability.